In this video, we're going to take a look at adding and subtracting fractions. Before we get into adding and subtracting fractions, we should just review a little bit of the terminology of fractions. A fraction, like 1/4 or 1/4, has a top and a bottom. The top of any fraction is called the numerator, and the bottom of any fraction is called the denominator. And if we're going to perform all of our operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, we need to be familiar with the terms numerator and denominator. If we're going to add fractions or subtract fractions, like 1/4 plus 1/4. Well, 1/4 plus 1/4, this is the addition of two fractions. Notice that the denominator of both of these fractions is 4. And if you're going to add or subtract fractions, you need to have a common denominator. That is, you need to make sure that the denominator is the same. Once the denominator of a fraction is the same, then we simply rewrite the denominator, and then we perform the operation on the numerator. So this would transform, because the denominators are both 4, the numerator of the combined fraction would then be 1 plus 1/4 or 2/4. So notice that because the denominators are the same, they're both 4, then we simply rewrite the common denominator, and then we perform the operation that was in the numerator. And so the 1 plus 1 in this line comes from the numerators of both of these fractions. And then we get 2/4. And we should also talk, at the same time as we add and subtract the fractions, we should also talk about reducing the fractions. This fraction is not in its lowest form. The reason why it's not in its lowest form is 2/4 can be reduced. If you can divide the numerator and the denominator by a common number, then we can reduce these fractions, and 2/4, because the numerator can be divided by 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1, and the denominator, 4 divided by 2 is 2, so 2/4, when we reduce it, is really 1/2. If we take a look at how these fractions measure up, I'm just going to take these two rulers and stack them one on top of another relatively close, and we can see here that this is an imperial ruler measured in inches, right? And so 1/4 of an inch is right here. You can see here these lines, 1, 2, 3, 4. These lines divide this inch into quarters, or into fourths. And so we have 1/4 on this ruler and 1/4 on this ruler. And when we put this 1/4 here together with this 1/4 here, we do get the 2/4 and you can see here that 2/4 is indeed half of this measurement. And it works the same with anything, whether you're in metric or imperial, it doesn't make a difference. But I thought I'd take this opportunity to show you, how we can use a ruler to measure, and also just a visual that 1/4 and 1/4 is 2/4, but 2/4 can also be reduced to 1/2. Now let's take a look at some practice problems with adding and subtracting fractions. Let's take a look at 5/8 plus 1/8. So when we're adding fractions or subtracting fractions, the first thing we have to make sure of is that we have a common denominator. And indeed, we do here have a common denominator. So if we have a common denominator, we rewrite that common denominator, and then we combine the numerator with the operation, in this case addition, that's between the numbers. So we have 5 plus 1 all over 8, or 6/8. And can 6/8 be reduced? Well, let's see. If we have, that's the wrong ruler. Sorry about that. If we have a ruler here, we can see that 5/8, well, if we're going to look at eighths now, on this ruler, if these lines dividing an inch into 4 were fourths, then these that I'm going to mark in red are going to be the eighths. And you can see that I have 8 dots, not quite perfect, but 8 dots. And so here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eighths, 5/8, and then we add 1/8, and that gets us to right here, which is 6/8. Now, if you look here at these big lines, you can see that 6/8 is also equal to 3/4. And the reason, again, why it's equal to 3/4 is because 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3, and 8 divided by 2 is equal to 4. So 6/8 is, or can be reduced to 3/4. Now we can subtract in exactly the same way. Let's take a look at 13/16 minus 7/16. Again, we can see that the denominators are common, so we can go ahead and rewrite the common denominator and then perform the operation by combining the numerators. And 13 minus 7, all divided by 16. And 13 minus 7 is 6, and so we get 6/16. And again, 6/16, I don't want you to always think that it's by 2, but 6/16 can be reduced because 6 is 3 times 2, and 16 is 8 times 2. And so 6/16 can also be reduced and expressed as 3/8. And if we take a look at one final problem with adding and subtracting fractions that have common denominators, if we look at 1/4 plus 3/4, again, these have a common denominator of 4, so we can rewrite the denominator and perform the operation that's in the numerator, and that is 1 plus 3, or 4/4. And I wanted to do this example to show you that we can reduce 4/4 as well. We can reduce 4/4 because 4/4, 8/8, 21/21, whenever the numerator and denominator of a fraction are the same, then that reduces to a whole number. So 4/4 is 1 whole. And we can again see that on our ruler. And here, if we have 1/4 which is here. And now, so there's 1/4, and if we add 3/4, to it, and I'll do that in red, well, there's 1/4 more, 2/4 more, and 3/4 more, and you can see we land up right here at 1 whole. And so 1/4 plus 3/4 is equal to 4/4. So that's a review of adding and subtracting fractions that have a common denominator.